Do you save money by sewing your own clothes? Short answer, probably not, but it's possible. Welcome to the Sewing Report. I'm Jen. This channel is all about making sewing and crafts fun and approachable, and I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about this topic because it's an important one. Lately, I've been seeing a lot of posts online where someone will post an inspirational photo of something they want to sew and ask people, how do I make this? Is it possible to make this? What do I gotta do? And usually the person posting it says they have zero sewing experience. So I want to get into, is sewing your own clothes actually cheaper than buying them at the store? I mean, you don't know what you don't know, and that's why I'm making this video. So we're going to be going over the startup costs, the learning curve of sewing, and the time commitment involved. So just to give a bird's eye view and actually answer the question, do you actually save money sewing your own clothes? I will just say it depends on what you're going to be making. If you're trying to recreate that $5 t-shirt from Target, the answer is probably no. It's going to be cheaper just to buy it at the store. But if you're someone that's trying to recreate something very expensive, like a Chanel suit or a couture dress, then you're probably getting closer to yes, and it depends on the materials you're using, the time commitment, and with your current skill set, how well are you going to be able to replicate that item? There are many different types and skill levels of sewing. There are people who do bridal work and formal wear, and they charge accordingly for their work, as well they should. The startup costs for sewing involve the sewing machine itself. There are many different notions: scissors, pins, rotary cutter, ruler, pressing board, iron. There's the fabric itself, which can range over a wide variety of prices, and then there's the little trim pieces like buttons or zippers. Here on the channel, I've been using the Brother CS7000i. This is a pretty entry-level machine. I think it's pretty beginner-friendly and good for a wide variety of applications. I would say a decent enough sewing machine for sewing clothing. Brand new is going to run you at least $150 to $200, but the sky's the limit with sewing machines. There are sewing machine models that cost the equivalent of a brand new car. We're talking $20,000, even $30,000. So when I didn't sew, I had no idea what the prices were of sewing machines, and to me, a $200 sewing machine would be really expensive, but people who don't sew don't understand that that's actually just a pretty basic model. Sewing patterns may require you to use 4, 5, 6, or more yards of fabric, and if you're looking at the higher level quality fabric, like the ones that the well-known designer brands use, you're looking at possibly $30 and up per yard. Now multiply that by the yardage you need for each pattern. You can quickly wipe out any savings of making it yourself just on the fabric alone. Some fabrics can also be notoriously hard to work with, like knit or stretchy fabric, or very thin and slippery fabrics, chiffon, satin, that type of fabric. And that's not something that I would really recommend a beginner just jump in and try to sew, because it can be really frustrating and you may not get the results you want. Many of us will also sew a practice garment called a muslin or a toile, and that's really to work out any fit or construction issues beforehand. Now this requires more fabric because you have to make the practice item, and a pretty decent time level commitment because you're actually making this item twice. And we do this so we don't waste the quote-unquote good fabric. And let's talk about the time commitment, because this is no small aspect. It will take you a certain level of time in order to increase your sewing skills to get to the level where you can actually make a garment that somewhat rivals a professionally manufactured garment. So you need to think about, what is your time worth? Now, if you're some high earning individual, say you make $300 an hour, do you really want to invest several weekends into learning how to sew something that per hour you could actually buy cheaper? It makes less financial sense the more you make per hour to sew something yourself, strictly from a money aspect. You also have to come to grips with the fact that your results may not turn out nearly as well as your inspiration photo. Are you going to be okay with that? Be honest with yourself. I've sewn quite a few items, and my first attempts were pretty bad, and I would say that's true for most sewists out there. We just can't overlook the expectations versus the reality. The longer you sew, the better you're probably going to get. And I know that may seem obvious, but I don't want new sewists to get frustrated because their first sewing project didn't turn out the way they want. They give up and they quit. Don't do it, it gets better, trust me. If you typically buy fast fashion items, you shop at Forever 21 or Target, the truth is, buying clothing is most likely going to be cheaper than trying to make it yourself. If you buy expensive designer labels, couture, then that's where sewing your own custom clothing starts to make sense from a financial position. Now, in terms of saving money, there certainly are ways to do it. Maybe you get a sewing machine on loan from a friend, you get it for free from someone who's not using it, or you get it used on places like Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, or eBay. Again, there are ways around it if you want to try to save a few bucks. You can also get your materials secondhand from a thrift store. Maybe someone's getting rid of something. I've sewn items out of tablecloths or bed sheets. That can be fairly cost effective. So if you're trying to source your materials and your supplies cheaply, going to yard sales, that type of thing, or just maybe you know someone who sews, who has tons of extra fabric, which is a lot of us, there are ways to cut costs. But if you're not looking to cut costs and you end up paying just retail price for everything, sewing can quickly become a very expensive hobby. And if you can drastically reduce the cost of sewing in terms of the supplies, the sewing machine, and your fabric, then you may start to come out ahead in terms of actually saving money sewing your own clothes. If you're just interested in learning to sew, period, there are plenty of reasons to start sewing for the fun and enjoyment out of it. That's why I sew, and I know that's why a lot of you sew as well. You can make anything you want. You can get stuff you can't buy at the store. You can make a certain style of garment, fabric choices, different pattern styles, and you can really customize your wardrobe. And that's the great thing about sewing for fashion. If you're willing to learn and grow into sewing as a hobby, it's something I highly recommend, 10 out of 10. Another benefit, sewing your own clothing is great if you have a focus on more ethical fashion, since obviously you'll know who made your clothes. And I'd love to know your thoughts on whether or not you actually save money by sewing your own clothing. I know a lot of us just do it for fun. And if you have any tips or things you wish you'd known as a beginner, drop them in the comments and hopefully some newcomers see these. If you are here, you're brand new and you know nothing about sewing but you want to know, I have plenty of videos aimed at beginners on buying sewing machines, the different types of sewing machines, learning how to use them, and some very beginner-friendly projects. I'm Jen with The Sewing Report. I'll see you guys in the next video. And remember, whatever you're doing, make it fun.